not necessarily, well, we do have an agenda, but if you could lead us through it, please. We'll call the meeting to order.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone who's able to join us today. Clint's not able to join us. He's here in spirit, but we're hoping that this is a fairly smooth meeting this evening. We've got 4 plats, 5 zoning cases, and 1 abandonment request. So I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see the presentation. Can everyone see our PowerPoint here?
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yes.
All right, so feel free to stop me if you have any questions throughout this presentation. As usual, open discussion. So first, we've got our subdivision plats. The first one is the final plat and construction plans of Park Meadows South Phase 2 addition. And you can see here's our city limit line. It's just on the edge of our city limits, close to Farm Miller and Ritchie Road. So here's the aerial that you can see for that vacant land out there. And we've got 4 phases for this subdivision plat. This will probably look familiar because you've seen this before, but it's coming back with some comments or addressing some comments. And we are recommending approval of the request for the plat. And if you're able to see the links that we sent you, is everyone able to open all of the links that I send you through the Plan Commission meeting information page and the smart file?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so like I said, it should be something that looks familiar. Here's the 4 phases, and then this is for phase 2. And as you can see in the comment letter, they have addressed all of the major comments. The bolded notes are their responses in the letter. Any questions on any of those?
Yeah, on Park Meadows South, I didn't read the comments. Are they being required to put up some money for the improvement of some of those border streets like Warren and Ritchie?
Joe, you were kind of breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure if I made out your question. You were asking if they're required to put in what exactly for the road?
Were they required to put up a bond or cash for improvements to either, aren't they boarding or on Warren? I lost you.
They are. Oh, you're talking about the south side where they're bordering along Warren Road?
Yeah. Is that, and that, wasn't that Warren?
Yeah, that's Warren Road. Allison is here. And I just wanted to double check with her.
I'm sorry, I don't know anything about Yvonne.
I can find that out for you, Joe.
Okay, I mean, I would have thought that would just been a matter of course. If they are bordering up on existing roads, I thought we had that in there.
Yeah, let me find that out for you before the business session.
Okay.
I'll give you an update at the beginning of our business session for that.
It's probably an information.
Any other questions on that one? Next, we have the final plats of South Fork Edition, phases 7, 8, 12 to 19, and 21 to 23. So this is the general location for these plats, these 13 phases that we're reviewing today. And we wanted to go ahead and run them through so that we're not bringing them back through the public process for each of the phases. They have addressed the comments. The preliminary plat was previously approved, and a lot of the comments were administrative for this one. So here is what was approved with the preliminary plat with phases 4 through 23. I'm not sure if you are able to make that out or not, but it's showing all of the phases plus some that are included on our agenda today, so that you can see kind of a breakdown of where they are. And then, of course, we provided a copy of each of the plats, the individual phase plats for these. And then we did include in the updated link that I sent you today, the letter in response, the city letter in response. The red text shows their responses to our comments, our last comments that were sent out on May 22nd. And as you can see, they're all administrative comments. And we can, talk about these individually, but I think that first slide that shows all of the phases would probably be the best one to reference if you have any questions on where they are. Any questions on that one?
Beatrice, what was the recommendation on that? Straight approval?
Yes, for this one, it is straight approval of all 13 phases.
Okay.
And then, of course, if there are any engineering issues that have to be worked out through on the city side, then our engineering department is going to work with them as each of the phases come through for the final plat.
Did the same hold true for that apartment to south?
As far as our recommendation,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, items 1 and 2, we're recommending approval with no conditions. Since the conditions are mostly administrative. If there aren't any questions on these, we'll move on. Items 3 and 4 are final plat and construction plans of Rose Ranch Phase 4 and construction plans for Grand Meadow subdivision. And both of these do have conditions for them. So we are recommending approval with conditions. So the first one for Royals Ranch Phase 4 is here. Here's the aerial. And you're looking at subdividing land that's on average 1.5 to 3 acres in size for the lots off of Rosenthal Parkway. And there are some significant construction comments that still need to be addressed. Comments from utilities and engineering. Any questions on those comments? The next one is the Grand Meadow subdivision. And Allison, can you remind me which plat this is a part of?
This one actually is not tied to a plat because the plat was recorded in around 1955, I believe. So they're just now coming back to development.
Okay, so this is tied to a plat that was approved in 1955. They're just now coming back to develop the land. So that's why it's only construction plans for this subdivision. And it's just south of Primrose and 12th Street, close to Baylor kind of on the other side of the saw.
You said 1965,
55.
55?
Yes,
Didn't
sir.
know we had a subdivision ordinance.
Well, apparently we did. I guess we were kind of on top of it at that point.
So they're grandfathered then, huh, for perpetuity?
I believe that's the case, yes.
Well, let's see. No, there were some comments with that, you know, in terms of how they made the connections in dead end streets.
Yeah, they still have to meet all of our current subdivision requirements for the construction plans, even though the plat was approved.
Okay, so it's subject to conditions then, huh?
Yes, it's subject to conditions. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So this was a plat under the same name that was platted in 1953, and it's being developed now under that same name?
Is that right?
They submitted their plans as Benton civil plans. However, the subdivision is called Grand Meadow.
Okay, so they submitted their plans as Benton said. I guess that's what they're calling it or referring it as, but it's part of the Grand Meadow subdivision.
Okay. That's just interesting. Wow.
Yeah, just some vacant land that was never developed. But as you know, our street requirements and engineering requirements have obviously been updated since 1955, so they're still subject to meeting all of those requirements. Any other questions on that one?
For those items, the first four, can we take the first two together and then 3 and 4 together just by recommendation?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's how we have it on the vote sheets. Okay, so moving on to our zoning cases. The first one is a special permit request for short-term rental type 2 and R1B zoning at 2701 Herring Avenue. This is at the southwest corner of Herring and North 27th Street in the Dean Highland neighborhood. And just so you know, we are monitoring these, making sure that all of the distance requirements are being met. This one actually is an existing short-term rental. It was, the special permit was issued to the current owner, but the property's under contract for purchase. And as you know, special permits are not transferable. And so the people who are under contract to purchase the property would have to apply for the special permit to be issued again. In this case, it's Golden Texas LLC. We haven't had any issues with the existing short-term rental. This map is just showing the dashed black line is the 200-foot noticing boundary for neighbors that we send notices to, and then the solid red line is a 500-foot buffer that we have between any short-term rental type 2 or bed and breakfast homestay establishment in R1 or R2 zone. So as you can see, it's not within 500 feet of any others. So here's the site plan. They have plenty of parking on the property. Like I said, it's an existing short-term rental. It's basically just going to be issued to the new owners. They did submit some photos, and you know, these are very nice kind of fisheye view photos, but we did verify that it does meet all of the requirements. And we are recommending approval. Next is another request for short-term rental type 2 for Enrique and Laura Nakeda at property 3601 Orchard Lane. Also for a type 2 and R1B zoning. This is about a 4-acre property between Loop 340 and South Loop Drive within the Timbercrest neighborhood. Just a reminder that the type 2 short-term rental is where the property owners are not required to remain on the property while they're renting it out, and they can only rent it out to one group at a time. Here's the location along Orchard Lane. Our zoning map, and then our map showing any other existing short-term rentals in the area. So this is not within 500 feet of any other existing ones. Here's a general site plan. They have, again, plenty of parking. It's a 3-bedroom, single-family home. They're required to provide at least 1 parking space per bedroom that's rented out. These are some of the photos that they provided. Driveway there. Parking at the rear of the home. And then these are some current photos that were taken by staff. And we are, again, recommending approval of this as well. One thing that I will point out for these first 2 that are special permits, in our special provisions and conditions, we did update condition 9 to be consistent with the current short-term rental ordinance requirements. We used to require the license to be issued annually, and now it can be done every 2 years. So you'll see that reflected on condition 9 for both cases 54 and 55. And then condition 10 is a new one, just to kind of give you a little bit of detail on that one. We've had some issues with short-term rentals acquiring special permits and then basically solidifying that 500-foot distance requirement to prohibit any other ones to come in. And we've had, not too often, but we've had some issues with a few that get their special permit and then they still have yet to acquire their license. And so we felt like it was appropriate to have a requirement in there that they have to acquire their license within 6 months of getting the special permit approved, if the special permit is approved. And then that way you don't have people who are just basically holding a spot and preventing anyone else from coming in. So that's a new requirement, condition 10.
Are they doing that? Are they doing that to just keep short-term rentals off their street, or are they doing that because they just eventually want to use it?
I think it varies, honestly, from case to case. Sometimes it's the misunderstanding that they don't have to do anything else once they get a special permit, even though we contact them and let them know that there's a second step that they still have to go through. Other times it could potentially be that they're wanting to just hold a spot. Or sometimes it's if they're eventually wanting to do it, but maybe not currently active as a short-term rental, just wanting to hold that spot. So we just felt like it would be more fair to require them to go ahead and get their license within 6 months, which is pretty reasonable because most of the time these are properties that are ready to go. If we have a situation where it's a new build or something where it's going to take a long time to remodel the home or anything like that, we could consider maybe extending that. But for majority of these, they're ready to go. So there's really no reason for them to not be able to meet that 6-month timeline.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Beatrice, on both of these short-term rentals, do they have somebody that's going to be within Waco that's operating these?
Yes, they did. I think they did indicate that in their narrative.
Okay.
Yes, for both of these.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so next we've got a zoning request from Golden Texas LLC, and we are actually co-applicants on this one. The applicant proposed to change the zoning of, I believe, 1817 Bagby. That was the initial request. And we did look at the area and felt like it was appropriate to go ahead and extend the rezoning for this area. And I'll show those maps in just a minute, but this is from R2 to O3, southeast of I-35 on Bagby Avenue. This is within the University Overlay District. Here's the aerial showing where it is on B35 18th Street. So the land use is medium density residential office flex, which allows a variety of zoning districts, including the proposed O3 office limited commercial. The zoning currently is R2. There are single family homes pretty much on every one of these lots. But they are abutting some commercial zoning currently. And we did feel like it would be appropriate to change that. There's some O3 in the vicinity of the property. They're meeting the size requirements. Since they are existing single family homes, you'll notice that some of them sit across the property line, but they're essentially, they've been there for a long time, since before the ordinance was in place. And so they're allowed to remain. If they were to expand the building in any way, they would be required to replat any of those into one legally platted lot. And then here are the homes. The O3 will also provide an opportunity for some other uses. The single family homes can remain. They would be in line with the O3 zoning, but it would also open it up for some opportunity for office uses, personal service shops, like a nail salon, hair salon type of thing. They would be allowed to do retail or restaurant uses, but with limited hours of operation. And there are our findings for approval. We do feel like it would also be kind of a buffer between the commercial zoning and the remainder of the residential zoning. Next, we have a request from Delphi Properties LLC for property at 1324 North 34th Street to rezone from R1B to R2. This is located on the west side of North 34th Street near the intersection of Brook Circle and North 34th Street in the Brookview neighborhood. So this one, we will admit that we struggled a little bit on our recommendation. We do have a recommendation in there for approval currently, and we can go over those findings in just a minute. Here's the aerial showing the location. Here's the land use map. It's medium density residential office flex as well, which allows for the R2 that is requested currently. The zoning map, you can see that there's R1B. So these two lots here are vacant. They're single family homes all along these other properties, within these other properties. And then there's actually a duplex, I believe, and a fourplex over here. And then you've got some commercial uses in here. So we do feel like there's an argument to rezone to the R2, but there's not much R2 in the surrounding area. So it really would be a matter of trying to figure out whether, basically the change from R1B to R2 would be, is that R1B allows single family homes only, R2 allows single family or duplex. So if it's rezoned at R2, then they could have either a single family home or a duplex on each of those lots that are vacant. And here's a couple of photos.
Have you had any feedback from the
We
single
did.
family neighbors?
We got one comment card in opposition to the request. And the comment just reads, "This will make property tax increase in a rundown part of the city." That's not necessarily why we're concerned. We're just trying to figure out whether R2 would be appropriate in that area. And I'll show you our findings. So R2 would be compatible with our current comprehensive plan land use. They are large enough. They do meet the requirements for size and width. It is adjacent to some multifamily zoning. Just in case, we do have some alternate findings for you. And, we don't want to sway you in any specific way, but we do have some alternate findings available.
Hey, B, this is Jason. Just a question. If we're looking to, or kind of trying to figure whether to go from 1B to R2, I just curious if that's a question, but it does say, you're saying that it does line up with a comprehensive plan. So is the comprehensive plan already kind of visioning that for the future already, but currently we're not sure if that's going to be a good fit or a good time to change?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. So our comprehensive plan was updated in 2016. And it's a guiding document that was adopted by council with a vision for how properties would develop in the future in the most appropriate way. And typically when you see the land use map, you see properties grouped in such a way that that is conforming to what the current uses are and what we felt would be appropriate in the future. But we didn't always look at areas with a microscope view, if that makes sense. So we looked at it generally and tried to pick out certain areas where we felt like there could be a pocket of more dense development based on what's already there and what we anticipate coming in the future and what those streets can hold. But we didn't always look at them from a very close perspective, if that makes sense. So we do have situations where even though the land use plan does say, well, there's a potential for this zoning to go there, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best plan for it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking that area, most of it's already developed with houses, with the exception of a few lots here and there. So just wondering, we talking about potentially changing the area from single family homes to more duplexes by, I don't know, tearing down, developers tearing down existing houses and then redeveloping. Is there much space to change that from single family to duplexes to fit that comprehensive plan in this specific area?
Probably not, because like you said, it is mostly developed out. I think there's just the buyer of this property saw an opportunity for vacant land and is ultimately just seeking opportunity for more density.
Sure.
So that's where we really kind of have to look at it on a case by case basis. What would be most appropriate for these two lots in this area?
Okay.
B, if we were to make a motion to disapprove, could we just say subject to staff findings, conditions, and y'all would slide in your alternative findings?
So we did draft some alternate findings for you, and I can share those with you. You can just a minute, let me pull them up. Apologize, I thought I had those pulled up already.
Just as a note, we used to live a few blocks south on Gorman. I feel like these two lots are kind of at a transitional point between the commercial at 34th and Bosque and leading into the Brookview area. This is not advocating one way or the other. I don't think I'd be in favor of it any closer to Brookview, but I think this is sort of like the southernmost point, which is not saying much. It's one lot from from it, but I wouldn't personally think it would be a good fit anywhere further south than where it currently is. So
Thanks, Ross. So can everyone see this Word document? No, share that specific.
Still see the PowerPoint.
Okay, sorry, I shared my document, not the screen. Just a moment. Oh, shoot. Okay, can everyone see that? Do you see a Word document with planning services recommendation for disapproval?
Yeah.
Okay. So one would be that the proposed R2 zoning could be considered incompatible with the existing single-family neighborhood that surrounds it. And we're talking specifically about the neighboring properties to the south that are single-family homes. And then two, there's already an adequate amount of residential zoning in the area that allows higher density development to support appropriate growth. So basically indicating that you have single family zoning that's already there, and and there you already have some multifamily scattered here and there to the north to support appropriate growth. So those are kind of the two findings that we came up with. You're welcome to use these if you are to make a motion for disapproval, or you can tell us if there's other findings that you want to add.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last zoning case is a request from applicant Eli Eden Holdings LLC, Series 500 South 11, to rezone property from M2 to O2 near downtown at the intersection of Webster Avenue and South 11th Street. Here's property. The land use designation is mixed use 4, which does support the change to O2 rather than the existing M2 light industrial. The gray is, the light gray is light industrial, red is commercial, and then the pink is O2. It's existing in the area, and they are proposing O2. It's next to a vacant, I think it's a near diversified building over here that you can see on the left corner, the left side of the screen. And we do feel like it's appropriate with the compatible with the comprehensive plan and the Imagine Waco plan greater downtown. And it is adequate for the O2 requirements as far as the property and width or size requirements for O2. And there's also O2 zoning. Questions on this one?
What was the address again for that?
It's 500 South 11th Street.
Okay.
Hey Beatrice, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the Downtown Neighborhood Association? Do they have that area?
It is. It's near downtown. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is in the Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Okay, did anybody from that neighborhood association send in anything? Or in opposition or approval or any comments?
No, we did not receive any sort of feedback from anyone.
Okay.
And then the last item on our agenda is an abandonment request for that was submitted by City of Waco for abandonment of previously obtained 20-foot perpetual easements. And basically the intent is for our utilities and public works departments to go through some projects for minute plans, and they need these easements to be located elsewhere. So this map shows the 3 easements, and they run along all together, and they're just color coded differently so that you can see each individual easement that's in place currently. And then this is the exhibit showing generally the intent of the abandonment. So you can see the 0.23 acres here, the 0.018 acres here, and the 0.052 acres here. And these are all water and sewer easements that would be abandoned. And then they are proposing to relocate them here. That's where that solid black outline is. And this is just basically for an infrastructure project.
Why are they having to do that?
Listen, can you elaborate on,
For the,
for the abandonment, why they're having to relocate these easements? Is it basically just more appropriate location?
Why are they having to relocate the utility line?
that part, I do not know. I just know that now that the work is in, they're having to change what they originally thought they needed.
Did you hear that?
Okay.
Any other questions on this one? Well, that's it. That's all of our items on the agenda. We are recommending approval on this one. No conditions are needed. Yeah, and it's basically for the revised construction plans the city submitted for this.
Okay, well, if we have nothing else to take up at this time, it looks like we've got about 20 minutes before we start gearing up for our business meeting. So, and there's a separate email link from Diane that you should have in your email for that. So be sure to leave this meeting and rejoin the 7 o'clock business session meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And Joe, I'm gonna get you an answer for the, for item 1, Park Meadows South Phase 2.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, well, let's take a 20-minute break and we'll meet back right before 7.
Thank you.
Thank you.